Welcome to Rock Solid, the Round Rock Business Leaders Podcast. Join your host, Bryan Eisenberg, as he explores the journeys of entrepreneurs and companies across Round Rock, Texas. From startups and nonprofits to large organizations, each guest shares their passion for doing business in this thriving community. Let's dive in.
Hi, everybody. It's Bryan Eisenberg, and I'm here with my good friend, Keith Goode. Keith, you have been in the Round Rock area for over 20 years. Can you tell us what it looked like when you first moved here and what drove you here?
Opportunity really drove me here. I was coming from the Southeast, Atlanta, and I had been laid off from yet another job because that's what happens in the technology industry. Mm-hmm. And I kept hearing about the Silicon Hills, of which Round Rock is a part. And I had visited 2 or 3 times, and I thought, this is a great place to live. These are great people. The attitude around here is so casual. Let's do this. So I moved out here with really no job, no opportunity whatsoever. I had a friend that let me stay with them, and I haven't really regretted that decision.
Well, let's give them a little background about who you are. I mean, a lot of people may not know that you are one of the top 10, easily 10 top technical search engine optimizers in the world. Forget about in Round Rock. You judge search competitions. You have worked for some of the largest brands. You've dealt with some of the most, complex issue. Let's talk a little bit about what that means, like what you do specifically, but also like some of the brands that you've worked with.
Yeah, so I've got well over 20 years in SEO in general. And I started out like many people did, doing SEO without actually knowing I was doing SEO. Because back then, you had your 10 blue links, and in order to rank really for a lot of the other search engines, AltaVista, Yahoo, InfoSeek, Dogpile, Lycos, Excite, you really only had to put a lot of keywords in your keyword field in the metadata. Yep. And you could rank. If you wanted to supersize your ranking, you would essentially do what you're not supposed to do, which is put white text on a white background in order to make the engines believe that you were more qualified to talk about a specific subject. This is TF-IDF. This is term frequency, inverse document frequency.
Yeah, even if that wasn't your particular topic, you could rank for just about anything just by putting in that hidden white text.
Absolutely. You could put anything. I ranked for Carl Jung, and I'm not even a psychology person, so I don't even know why I put that in there, but I did. So as many people did at that time,
the Wild West,
right?
Of
There's
search.
the Wild West of search, and then Google came along and it said, "Listen, keywords they're fine, but we want to see who affirms how well you rank by linking to you, how relevant you are to specific topics." And so they, coming out of their research at Stanford,
Backrub,
they were interested in figuring out how sites of a specific topic related to other sites about that same topic. And they call these topical neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. And it made sense that real estate sites link to real estate sites, dentistry sites linked to dentistry sites.
Sites in Round Rock would link to other sites in Round Rock.
Absolutely. And so it evolved as an industry. I kept pushing on, doing what the other forums were telling me I should be doing. And when I moved to Austin, I had no idea what my direction would be. Mm-hmm. And a friend of mine says, "Why don't you just do SEO? You're already doing that." And I'm like, wait, I am? What is that? And I actually literally had to Google SEO and read about it. And as I read it, I realized I'd been doing it for several years at that point. I was there at the advent of the consumer internet in 1994. Yep. And it was a great time. But nobody knew what anybody was doing at that time. So, coming into Austin in 2004, I realized, SEO is my calling, I guess you could say. And I've been doing it ever since.
Rock Solid is produced and recorded at Round Rock Studio. Located right here in Round Rock, our state-of-the-art studio is built for podcasters and creatives alike. We offer multiple professionally designed podcast sets, top-notch recording gear, and a full photography studio ready for any project. Whether you're launching a new podcast or upgrading your existing one, we can help with multi-camera recording, editing, and everything you need for success. Record with us at Round Rock Studio, your local podcasting partner.
I want to step back because you mentioned a couple of really interesting points there, and I kind of want to roll back history. So, same thing. I've been, on the internet. I've been online since 1983, since I ran my own bulletin board. But even before that, the more modern internet, right? I remember the days where you'd find these, few popular pages that would link to new websites that got launched, and you'd click there and you'd surf the web. Like that, that was the original metaphor. And then, of course, you mentioned all those other engines, Excite and Lycos and AltaVista and Yahoo, right? And all of those. And they'd have their also new sites and stuff like that. And then Google came along and they really changed the paradigm for search significantly. Yeah. And now they've evolved. And they have the market share of search today, like over 60% still. But the results are a lot more mixed. There's no longer 10 blue links. There's videos, there's maps, there's images, there's all kinds of stuff. Yeah. And now we're hearing from a lot of people, their search behavior, especially in younger people, and not just young people, but all kinds of people. They're moving towards AI, and even Google's going towards AI snippets. Yeah. If you had a look at this from a business person's perspective today, we can look at it as consumer as well. Where do you think we're going over the next few years?
I think a lot of that is going to determine who your audience is. And I think this is always something you have to keep in mind as a business, because if your audience is not, if you're in Round Rock, Texas, and you're selling to Round Rockers, is that the proper term?
Sounds right.
And if it's not, it should be the Round Rockers. That's awesome. But if you're selling just to Round Rockers and you don't really care, why would you target someone in Boise, Stamford, Connecticut? Yeah. It doesn't make any sense. And so maybe local SEO is really your play. So in 5 years, is that going to be the same? Possibly, unless AI evolves and says, okay, I see that you're located in Round Rock, and you've asked who makes the best tacos in Round Rock. I'm going to serve up this AI overview to you. And that may be where it's important. But does that mean you have had to change how you approached SEO? Maybe, maybe not. This really depends on information consumption by both crawlers as well as the training algorithms for AI at this point. If you are a larger organization and you're selling broadly to either the continental United States or internationally, it will change how you approach it all. It actually expands the number of channels that you have to care about as a business owner. And it may not just be SEO, and it may not just be local SEO, but it may have to involve determining how you interact with the crawlers that are coming out of ChatGPT, from DeepSeek, from all of the other crawlers that are evolving and coming out right now. So it really is a matter of who your audience is. Start there and then figure out what you need to focus on.
So if I'm a business owner here in Round Rock, which is a lot of our audience, and let's say, like you said, we just want to focus in on local SEO. You think that's relatively going to be standard the next few years? Like, yes, maybe there'll be some AI, like, I'll get into my car and, Apple Maps will tell me I'm 15 minutes away from this location because it knows I go there. So there is some level of AI going on there. Yeah. Little. Yeah. We expect it to add more. So there's that. But if I'm a business and I want to sell globally, I've got to start thinking about this. What are some of the regular challenges that you see these business owners have where they need to bring in someone like you to help them overcome their search limitations?
Yeah, I think for a lot of business owners, they just want to do their business. And oftentimes when they're implementing how they present their business, they go with the cheapest option they can. And so it makes sense for them to go for their Google business profile because it's free. Yep. It doesn't cost them any money. And they may say, I'm going to have a basic website up there, and not really think about how that website is going to be consumed by users, bots, how it meets accessibility standards, how it meets the user experience needs of the users that they're trying to attract. And so when people, reach out to me, they really oftentimes don't know what they need. It's that whole paradigm of you don't know what you don't know sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's my job to teach them what they don't know and let them know what they need. And that could be that they've had somebody build a very chintzy website, not a great website. It needs a full overhaul. It
happens a lot with restaurants.
It happens a lot with restaurants. It really does. Yeah. And that's not necessarily going to break your business, but it certainly will affect people who need to figure out whether or not you've got gluten-free options or you've got vegan options or whatever is necessary for their dietary restrictions. And so you really have to figure out, I have to figure out where they're technically limited at this point in their development. Sometimes that involves crawling their site as Googlebot would crawl it and figuring out what's broken, what needs to be fixed, what's slow, what's too big, what's too small. And a lot of those crawls are going to tell me a lot about the website. It's also a matter of looking at their content. Their content may be written sometimes by an LLM and not very good and not really addressing the needs of the users. And it's a matter of looking at their content strategies. Like, how are you trying to communicate to your user? What is it your user needs to hear from you in order to meet their needs? Oftentimes people just want to put something out there and get it done.
Checkbox.
And and not really revisit that ever. So my strategies when I'm dealing with a business owner really have to do with where they are right now, and really what they're willing to invest going forward.
So I heard there's two parts there. So there's a technological part, and sometimes, especially with big companies, they've got big content management systems that could be, for whatever reasons, create all kinds of challenges for the bots to read it, and especially the AI crawlers. And I want to dive into that in a minute. But then there's also the content side of it, right? What they're telling their users. So there's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I was just with one of my good friends who rewrote everything on his website because he had hired an SEO agency and they actually performed for him. They brought a lot of traffic, but no one stuck around because he was targeting words, but it wasn't speaking the language of his business, and it just wasn't resonating with his customers. As soon as he rewrote everything, now people come into his business and literally quote pieces from the website that's his language, because it's not some agent or or some LLM that wrote that copy for him to rank. It resonates with his audience.
Yeah, and I know a lot of very good agency owners. We're both well connected in the industry, and so we know quality people in our industry. But we also know that there are probably a lot more agencies out there that aren't as good at what they claim to do. And even they, are being chintzy in how they address the SEO needs of their client. They may not even know. Some people might start out as a junior SEO, think that they know everything, and then I'm going to start my own agency at this point. And it may not be malicious. Sometimes it's just they just don't know what they don't know.
And it's interesting, I know a lot of agencies are using AI to produce a lot of their content. And I want to go there because just recently, we saw the market take a big hit from a new DeepSeek LLM, which is fascinating for a bunch of reasons. And I want you to talk about that compared to, the whole infrastructure that OpenAI has been behind, and what the whole economy, why it suffered. And then the day after that, Berkeley researchers were able to basically replicate that same thing for $30. So we're going from hundreds of billions to millions to $30. And what does that mean for like every business and individual use of AI going forward?
These types of advancements sometimes represent Sputnik moments for our society. And if you're not familiar, when the Russians launched Sputnik back in the 60s, it drove the world into a panic. And the United States at that point decided that they needed to really amp up their space program and get us to the moon. And this became our goal for nearly a decade as a society. We all got behind it. And so DeepSeek, like many other developments, represent that not incremental change in society, but a massive leap forward, because what DeepSeek was working with was a limited ability to scale. Because in
limited
China,
resources. Yep.
Yeah, they're not allowed to have the NVIDIA chips that power a lot of our AI at this point. And they had to figure out a way to get around that limitation. And they used coding to do that. And they did it quite well.
And open sourced it.
Yep. And so that makes a big difference. And so that really changes how we should, as a society, look at our technological advancements. We need to stop thinking about scale in the way that we have. With AI, it's been a matter of, okay, we need more computing power. That's the goal of AI, is just to keep expanding servers and expanding server farms and getting more NVIDIA chips out there. And the Chinese proved that's not always the case. There are other ways to get there. And so I think this is going to change for the approach that many like OpenAI takes when they're dealing with their own AI programs.
Yeah, to me, what's fascinating about that is what that implication is for the consumer, because we know, like Apple just released Apple Intelligence on their phones. It becomes so much more cost effective and powerful. What do you think that will mean for the average consumer or the customer of businesses going forward?
I think it's a lot more convenience for the customer. It's all about, let's just face it, this is capitalism, and the goal is to get as much of the consumer's money as possible. And the way you do that is you make life easier for them, and you make avenues to get what they need easier. And so that's going to be the change that the consumer is going to see. So for the average Joe, he's only going to see things improve from a technological standpoint. The average business owner, on the other hand, that's a different story altogether, because it's a matter of, okay, how do I scale my business to meet these new channels? How do I deal with the massive increase of crawlers pinging my servers and consuming my bandwidth and my power? And so there was an interesting article I read recently about a group of what they call anti-AI people, or AI haters, and that's not really true. They were developers who developed malware called tar pitting.
Yeah.
And it's basically the old, back in the old days of SEO, before Google was a very sophisticated crawler, there were things called spider traps. You remember those?
Yep.
And it was a matter of, you get to a page that links to another page that links back to the page that links to that page, and they get into this infinite loop of crawling. And so the same thing was happening with the tar pitting for AI crawlers, and a lot of it had to do with the fact that businesses were going from having reasonable crawling from these resources across the web to having millions of hits in a matter of minutes of these bots coming along, scraping the content and using it for their learning models. So the business owner will have to absorb some of the costs going forward to this, and that needs to be accounted for. I think that will need to, at some point, even out across the industry and reduce the false economy related to crawling and power consumption for AI. That may involve legislation. That may involve legal battles in court.
I want to sidetrack one little bit, because I think this is another part that's going to change things. This same week with DeepSeek, OpenAI also announced their agents. And I've always said I imagine a world where each of us will have our own personal agent. And now that seems a lot more likelihood, if we can keep those costs down, that can go out and navigate and find us. So if you had your own AI agent, and if you can explain what the AI agent does, and it would say, Keith Goode, favorite taco in the Round Rock area, right? Someone searched that. How would that work?
Yeah, I mean, quite frankly, this has already been fleshed out in the movie Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Go ahead and watch that. It's okay. So agreeably, there are some creepy moments in that, and uncomfortable moments in that movie, but it was well ahead of its time.
That's what science fiction does. It imagines that future.
Yeah, and essentially, the learning models that a lot of these LLMs have are vast resources across the web, impersonal content written for the masses. And what agents are going to do, they're going to use you as their learning model.
Yeah.
And so essentially you will become the sole focus of these models that will then address your needs, what you want, know what you need before you even know. Sometimes.
Even at the time that you need it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's again, this is going to become very good for the consumer, right? We're going to be able to have our own agents. We're going to be able to have someone else do the searching for us, sometimes do the work for us, at least the menial tasks, if nothing else. And it's going to be great for the consumer. It's, again, the challenge is to go back to the businesses at that point.
I always say, every reduction in friction for the for the consumer, it has to go somewhere. Law of thermodynamics, right? Like
it does.
It ends up on us as business owners to figure that out.
Yeah.
So Keith, having been in this area for a long time, what are some of the favorite places that people should search out for when they're here?
In Round Rock, there's just so many resources that you may not even know about. I just discovered last month that there is a roller rink right next to my neighborhood that has a gym attached to it. And so now for the past month and a half, I've been walking to this gym and sort of hoping that I experience one of the moments where they have one of their roller derbies. So they have roller derbies there. I had no idea, literally right next to my neighborhood. I think that's Rock City Arena. But also the trails. The natural resources available. You're familiar with the Brushy Creek Trail on the east side. I just recently discovered the west side. I just discovered the Brushy Creek Trail on the east side. It's about 3 miles long. It's beautiful scenery as you walk down it. I think that's something that people should search out. Just, not too many people, because I like my my casual walks without a lot of people around there. Obviously, food. So much food has expanded out of the Austin area into the Round Rock area. Ramen Tatsuya, for example, great ramen. You get more Tumble 22 for the fried chicken. I mean, there's just so many things that have expanded out here. Just delicious food. And then, of course, we have our local cuisine as well. I mean, Salt Lake's been here forever, right? Down off of 79. I don't even know where to go with it, because I really rarely leave the Round Rock area unless I absolutely have to, because there's everything that I need here. All of my grocery shopping is here. All of my Costco runs are here.
That's awesome. If you had to leave any final pieces of advice for business owners who may be concerned that they're not being found well enough in their marketplace, what would be your best tip for them right now?
I would use my casino reference here, and it's know your game. Which game are you playing? And what are the table stakes at that game? So you may think that you need to be playing Baccarat and be involved with international SEO, and that's not where your audience is. Maybe you need to be back at the blackjack table. And then once you're there, realize what your table stakes are for running that business. And so if you're only focused on local at this point, you're going to have less of tables, a lower table stakes than someone at the Baccarat table would have at that point. So you might be at the $5 table. You only need local SEO, your GB, your global business, Google business profile, your Bing business profile. Those types of things may be the only thing you need to be focused on at this point. But if you're a larger business owner, you're going to be at a different game, perhaps.
Yeah.
And you need to think about, what is your game? What are the table stakes? And then what can I do to really win the game at that point?
Yeah. I mean, I know with, our home care agency, that's all we focus on is that local SEO. If we can win that game against all the 70 plus other agencies in the marketplace, it puts me a step ahead of a lot of that, right? Yeah. And that's only a piece of the equation. Keith, if people wanted to get a hold of you and they had other questions, where could they find you? Maybe on social media or a website? What's the best places to find you?
I'm usually at Keith Goode, Keith, not Kieth. It's grammatically incorrect, apparently. So you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn. You can come to my website, goodesearch.com, and I'm happy to talk to you as a business owner if you need some help. And I'm just always out there, so just look for me. I'm on Blue Sky as well. So
In other words, they can search you out.
Just, use Google search. Find it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Keith.
All right. Thank you.